Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvelously well. In this episode, I'm going to try out the new Waves Germano NX. Germano Studios, for those of you that, like myself, are huge fans of records that were made in New York, particularly in the 70s and 80s, by good friends such as Jack Douglas and Sheila Yakus and Joe Messina and all of his other great New York producer, engineers, and mixers. If you're fans of that period, then of course you'll know that studio, Germano Studio, as the Hit Factory. The Hit Factory did a lot of really huge albums. And if I read off the list here, it says Stevie Wonder to Kendrick Lamar, Post Malone to the Rolling Stones, David Bowie to Kanye West. You'll remember about 3 or 4 years ago when this kind of head tracking, this technology, before everybody had a version of this, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, I flew to Abbey Road and I got a great opportunity to sit in Abbey Road and listen to this technology with a pair of headphones on and then remove it and listen to the speakers and actually compare. And it was pretty ridiculous. In fact, the first time I heard it with the headphones on, I didn't realize I was actually listening with the headphones on. Now, that sounds stupid. What I mean is, like, they were playing the big speakers, and I thought the big speakers were so loud that they were actually, coming through the 7506s. And of course, I took the headphones off and it was silent. So it's pretty compelling technology. So I don't think it's ever a discussion about, like, does it sound like the room? I've been in the room and at Abbey Road and reference, and it does sound like the room. The question is that the kind of technology that you need? I mean, it's really as simple as that, isn't it? So I really strongly believe that this kind of technology is based very firmly around two important things that may or may not be important to you, but these important things are, did you come up listening in rooms with speakers? Is it really sort of super important to you to be in an ambient space like that? And then secondly, which I think where a lot of people end up getting these particular plugins full, is referencing in a different situation. Meaning you might mix on headphones, but you want to hear what it sounds like in a typical studio. Now, I do both. I mix on headphones, and of course I mix in this room. This room we've had for 11 years. Yeah, 11 years. Bought this place in 2011. So 11 years of working in the studio, working with this console, working with not necessarily these speakers, but different speakers, 1032 General X, the Focals, NS10s originally, NS10s and General X here. And I am very, very used to sitting here and mixing. I've mixed lots of albums, lots of singles, lots of EPs in this environment. So I think what's important is, what do you love and prefer? Now, when I mix on headphones, the immediacy of the music means that sometimes I overcompensate with reverbs. Sometimes I am so used to hearing speakers and not earbuds or headphones that I might get a little bit carried away with putting verb on everything, trying to create a lot more depth, because there is no ambience at all in the room. And as you know, unless you are born and bred in an anechoic chamber, which none of us, of course, are, we are used to hearing ambience in a room. No matter how dead or flat it is, there's always some ambience in there. And it's a good thing. It's how you judge space. It's how you understand how far something is away. It's all part of our skills as a human being, as an animal, to navigate our surroundings. So, do you like mixing with headphones? Are you used to it? Are you like me, where you can mix with headphones, but you overcompensate by putting on verbs, like tons of different verbs on everything, to try and recreate the feeling of being in a room and listening to music? These are big, big questions. So the NX, of course, is more than just sitting in the room. The head tracker allows you to move around. Now, when I'm over there, for instance, we have little speakers, like we'll put the IK Multimedia, we've had the General X up there, or use headphones and edit, and then take off the headphones or turn off those little speakers and then sit between it to check the mix. You know, it gets difficult when you're sitting there for long periods of time blasting it too loud. You can play it quiet, but if you blast it too loud, you'll kill one of your ears. So I suppose what's interesting about this is that you can kind of emulate that, can't you? Because I can move my head around and the speakers will always be there. That's what the NX head tracker does. So it looks like they've got 3 sets of speakers here. They've got this custom, I don't know how you pronounce it, Exergy. They've got a pair of Yamaha NS10s, and they've got their own Germano Acoustics APS Eons. At the moment, the head tracking isn't turned on. So I press this button on top with the head tracker, and this little status light comes up here, this green one here. And then the head tracking can then also be turned on and off here. This is interesting because, like, if I go to the NS10s, which I've known for years, and listen to this mix. Sounds like a pair of NS10s. Bypass it. Now you'll notice a few things. I've selected over here Sony MDR 7506s. The 7506s aren't my typical headphones that I use, but I know they are really, really popular with a lot of guys. Andrew Sheps. Hello, Andrew. I know he talks about mixing on MDR 7506s. The thing about 7506s is that you can go to any studio in America pretty much, and they have a pair of these. I know growing up in the UK and in Europe, it was always Biodynamics, but over here, these are the Sonys. They're cheap. They're inexpensive. I think they're $100 and something, sometimes less than that, you know, but around about $100. So there's head modeling here. I haven't measured my head. I don't have a tape measure, but you can actually measure ear to ear and put it in there and get really, really specific on it. So here's our speaker selection. We've got their custom-made speakers, the NS10s, and then these Hughes Exergies, which I presume are the ones in the wall up here. We can listen in a second. So I've got the head tracking on, moving my head. You can see the indication there. And as I move around, the music is staying static, it's staying there. It's pretty crazy. Now, those of you that know about this stuff, that have kids or yourself own VR, virtual reality stuff, you'll know about this kind of technology that you can have sound coming from all around you now. And it's pretty darn amazing. And it makes perfect sense when you're playing a virtual reality game that you can have a sound, appear over here and be outside of just this usual stereo left and right, LCR kind of world that we live in. So listening to this, it definitely sounds like a pair of NS10s. I'm going to play it again. Bypass. Some of the low mids are coming back. In bypass, a lot more low end. Not surprising, NS10s don't have them. Let's go to the GA speakers. Low end's back. Bypass. The low end's still bigger in bypass. And now the low end's massive in the wall-mounted speakers. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the middle-sized ones, the GAs, and bring the ambience down. So there's less of the room now affecting it. Don't you need it? There ain't no use of crying. Just get left behind. Cranking the room ambience. Surprised it's not that much. Don't you see it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you see it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it? Really surreal when you turn your head. It really does make you think there's a pair of speakers there. All right, I want to see what decisions I'm going to make on a mix. This is on the medium-sized speakers, bypass. So now I'm listening without the NX in place, the Germano, and I'm putting it on. I'm definitely hearing 7, 8, 9, 10, like exaggerated, like a lot more on the top of the snare there, which I was not hearing in bypass. That hat, go to the exergy. NS10s. Bring the ambience down. So it's less of the room and more of just the direct sound of the speaker. Definitely a huge amount of low end on those exergies. Back to the GAs. Be careful I'm not waving my head around too much. So I want to see what decisions it makes. Now, I feel like once you feel like you're in a room, everything just feels wider and deeper. So the left and right sides seem to just be a little bit further out. There seems to be a little bit more depth. Let's throw in the bass. The thing is someone who's grown up using tons and tons of different speakers, but particularly coming up with NS10s, which are, they're not that popular anymore. People still use them. I mean, Bob Clearmountain doesn't even have a pair of NS10s up. And Bob Clearmountain was the guy that started using NS10s. Everybody copied him. But because I know them really well, when I listen to those three sources, even though the lack of low end is pretty evident on a pair of NS10s, I feel most comfortable on that. Bypass it. That makes the most amount of sense to me. It still has the characteristic. It's more interesting to listen to. So, yeah, even though there's no extended low end, I actually like the NS10s. It's so interesting because when you go to the NS10s, that like 7 dB lift or whatever it is at 1.5K really helps the vocal come forward.
Don't you need it, baby, can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby, can you feel it?
When I go into bypass.
Baby, can you feel it? Don't you need it? There ain't no hang around with all the girls in town. Try to run, try to hide. Now you're trying to break my life.
Bring the ambience down.
Don't you need it, baby, can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby, can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby, can you feel it?
We'll go back to the GAs.
There ain't no use to cry, just get left behind. Don't you see it, baby, can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby, can you feel it? Don't you see it, baby, can you feel it? Don't you need it?
All right, I'm going to try something I want to listen to the bass because the low end is the biggest differences. I mean, there's massive differences between all three sets of speakers, but the low end is hugely different between them. Obviously, NS10s doesn't have any huge low end whatsoever. The Exergies have a schnizzle ton of low end, and the GAs are somewhere in the middle. So listening on these NS10s, I want to just add a little bit of this 240 here. Let's bypass it. And the 240 on the bass I've just added is more evident to me on the NS10s than it is on just going direct to headphones. I'm really not hearing that much of a change.
Don't you need it, baby?
It's because the headphones have this kind of extended low end, which is like really round and kind of blooming in that area and probably give me a full sense of security. So, but when I go and listen to it on a pair of NS10s, which I know better, it connects the bass with the guitars. So, and that's subtle things, very, very subtle things. So, but it is pointing to why you might, I'm not saying you have to, but you might want to use a piece of software like this. You might want to use the Germano NX because you'd be like, I'm in a room. Now, like anything, you know, do you know the room back to front?
Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it? There ain't no hanging around with all the girls in town. Try to run, try to hide. Now you're trying to break.
What's interesting on the vocal, when I'm listening to on the NS10s, I feel like I can hear some kind of pitch change information. I don't remember what I used on the vocal. Let's have a quick look. Ah, interesting. There's a vocal plate which isn't actually working. And so what I'm hearing is that slight phasing, which I'm not hearing on the direct.
Can you feel it? Don't you need it?
I can hear it there.
Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it?
It's going through a bus and there's like a slight delay to it. And so it's making it feel like it's double tracked. It's not pitched, but because it's like going at the same time. That's interesting. So I noticed that on the NS10s quicker than I did on just going directly to the headphones. This really is going to be about individual experience. Like, do you like mixing in a room? If you're not really into the idea of mixing in a room, then these aren't the kinds of softwares for you. But if you are, and you like the idea of the head tracking, you know, where you can sort of move away and feel like you're actually in a room, then it's going to make some sense to you. Let's grab a reverb. Going to get an Abbey Road chamber.
Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it? Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it?
Dry.
Don't you need it, baby?
Put it on.
Can you feel it?
Now bypassing.
Don't you need it? There ain't no hanging around with all the
I don't know what it is. It's like, is it, maybe you guys and girls can answer this, but when I hear the Abbey Road chambers in the room, it's more evident to me than when I hear it with the direct headphones. I feel like I'm always using more verbs because I'm not in a room.
Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it?
It's huge. Huge difference. So I'm bypassing the plugin, and I probably just turn up the verb.
Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it, baby? Can you feel it? Don't you need it?
I think there's just an exaggeration of being in an ambient space like this room and then adding some verb to it, and it It's obviously adding verb to an already ambient space. Interesting. I mean, for me, I did use the Abbey Road one on quite a few mixes. And I know a lot of people, like our Academy members, that have enjoyed using it when they're not able to mix in a room. I think for this kind of plugin, it's going to be all about, once again, are you a person that mixes in front of speakers? And is that the experience that you have and what you want? And then secondly, are you looking to check what your mix is going to be like in different rooms? And those are the two questions you have to ask yourself. With the NS10 selected, and of all those three speakers, the ones that I most closely know, I did make a mix decision that I wouldn't have made, or I would have exaggerated on a pair of headphones. I would have the same thing with the Reverb. It sounds super, super dry in the headphones. I put when the plugin's turned off. When I bypass that, there's some ambience in the room, and I'm not quite so worried about it sounding so dry. But when I added a chamber to it, it seemed like, oh, there's some chamber. I can really hear it. As soon as I bypassed the plugin and went back to hearing it from the headphones, that was all eaten up. So whatever you feel about this, and there's going to be a million different opinions, and I totally get it. Whatever you feel about this is definitely designed for somebody that wants to be in a space and feel like they're mixing in a room. Also combined with the fact that it's another method of checking your mixes. It's a great room. It's a world-famous room. It's a good sounding room. It's another way of listening to what you've done. As far as the head tracking is concerned, that's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting concept. It definitely is a useful attribute to make you forget that you're wearing headphones. And I think that is probably its sole purpose. I haven't been any coached by anybody on what to say, but I do believe that's probably the sole purpose. I mean, because you can move around, and before you know it, you can feel relaxed like you're in a room. Is that important to you? I don't know. That's only you can answer that. But I think it might be for those people that want this technology to feel like they're in a room. This is the other factor that's going to make that feel possible. So it's not for everybody, but it's definitely for people that want to check it in different environments, and for people that definitely want to not have it feel like the music is just crammed into their head from a pair of headphones. Now, I am definitely not negative about mixing on headphones. And I mix on headphones all the time. I've done many, many live streams. And to me, the room aspect of this is something interesting to add to it. But I have mixed many, many, many songs just with a pair of headphones and no room emulation. And I've got good results. Again, it's hard for me to judge the quantity of reverbs to use, because if everything's dry, seemingly, then I might go crazy on the reverbs, and that does happen. Everything seems to be a lot more upfront, obviously, on headphones, because there's no room ambience, and that can lead you into making decisions that maybe aren't the smartest. But at the end of the day, if you're really good at mixing in a room, then great. But there's plenty of people that are also really good at mixing with headphones on. There's no rules. Whatever works for you. Thanks ever so much for watching. So long, farewell, Wiedersehen, au revoir. Leave any comments and questions below. I'm sure there's going to be a million different opinions on this, and I know not everybody likes this or understands it or wants it, and that's fine. But please leave some comments and questions below. Thanks ever so much. So long, farewell, Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, tutzins, and Wiedersehen, ciao, au revoir, adios, adio, goodbye. So don't forget, you can enter to win one of 3 copies of this plugin. So please click the link down below to win one of 3 copies.